led you to study naturopathic medicine?
So in my 4th year at McMaster, in my undergraduate degree, I was trying to kind of consider, well, what do I want to do for my career? And I started looking into different options in the healthcare field, but I didn't know what would really fulfill my expectations. So I actually took a career course there, and they did these series of inventories, and one of them was a personality inventory where they kind of give you the careers that were suited to your personality.
Okay.
And naturopathic doctor came up.
Okay.
And it was one of those careers that I wasn't too familiar with, but it intrigued me, so I started to kind of research it and get a feel for what it involved. And it made a lot of sense, so then I spoke to the naturopath on campus, who was actually...
There's one on campus?
Yeah.
Great. Yeah.
So Dr. Patel.
Okay.
Dr. Rita Patel was the one on
cool.
campus.
Yeah.
And she was nice enough to meet with me and sit down, and she chatted a bit about what brought her into the profession. And the more I learned about it, the more it just really seemed to align with everything that I wanted for myself. So then I just, after I'd done enough research, took a leap of faith and never looked back.
What then led you to become a resident?
What led me into the residency was I really liked the idea of teaching. I've always been really passionate about teaching. And I really liked that you'd be able to work alongside other naturopaths at the college. So the college is fantastic because it has such a varied, it's such a wide spectrum of different naturopaths. So I really liked the idea that I'd be able to teach, but then as I was kind of getting comfortable in my own skin as a naturopath, I'd be able to develop my skills alongside other professionals.
Yeah.
So from a professional point of view, I just thought it was a great career investment because you spend sort of 2 years working alongside all of these fabulous colleagues, and you leave with that knowledge, but then you can also give back to the profession as well through teaching.
Yeah.
I also think that it's great because you can develop this skill of critical reflection. So you have people kind of giving you feedback. So the students that you work with, the faculty, your colleagues, it's a great way to kind of gain insight into your own style of practice. Yeah, and really settle into your own skin.
What were you hoping to learn? What were you going in with hoping to learn in the residency program?
Right. So when I was applying to be a resident, I think I really wanted to learn from the other naturopaths in the school. So after my 4 years at CCNM, I felt like you learn so much information, but I was just starting to develop my passion for naturopathic medicine.
Wow.
So when I went into the residency, I really wanted to just further develop that. And I thought that working alongside some of the naturopaths in the college would just help me to sort of better understand the role I wanted to play in the field.
Okay.
So that was my own goal for myself, was just to work among as many different people as possible, to learn everything I could from them, and then just figure out what was right for me. I also wanted to stay a part of the CCNM community.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that as you go through your career as a student, you either become really attached to the college or you can't wait to finish as soon as possible and never see it again. And for myself, I fell more into the former category, where I really liked CCNM. It felt like a good fit. The people I met there really felt like they were on the same page as myself, and some of them have become still friends to this day.
Yeah.
So I really liked CCNM. The faculty, the staff, the colleagues, and I really wanted to stay a part of that community. And the residency, I thought, would give me that opportunity as well. To sort of grow alongside the students coming in there and then keep a pulse on the profession and stay a part of CCNM.
Yeah. And you were in the play as well.
Let's talk about what's most important here.
Definitely,
yes, I was the star of the holiday play. Can I go nowhere without being recognized? Yeah, I was in the play. I really loved that.
That was so fun. Yeah, that was an awesome
Harry Potter.
Play. Yeah.
I helped to write it. No big deal.
I think that I was in first year when that came out, actually.
And would you have said that it was the best holiday play?
I think it was really fun. It was really
the best. Alicia?
I think there's some competition.
Oh,
I know that like my class, we're gonna definitely give you a run for your money.
Fair. Until then.
Fair enough. So next question would be, what were your responsibilities as a resident?
So I'm a clinical resident. So in my first year, a lot of it was being a TA to the clinical education courses. So the courses like PCD, primary care, clinic for year 1s and 2s. So you play a really large role in that. And then you also take the lead on your own research project. So that was part of it. And then you do a clinical mentorship in the RSNC as well. And you supervise at a community healthcare center. In your second year, then you inherit your own shift. So it has much more emphasis on supervising. So you're a supervisor for 2 different shifts at the RSNC. I did one of my shifts actually at Brampton, which was a fantastic opportunity.
Yeah.
And that's probably the big aspects of your responsibility.
And what were the main impacts or the main impact that you were hoping to fulfill as a resident? And in addition to that, how did you try to do that? So what was there a main impact you were trying to hit, and then how did you go about doing that?
Right.
Yeah.
So with teaching students, I guess my main goal was to give people the tools and the skills to be able to critique knowledge. So I think that we live in an environment where we have so much information readily accessible to us, but we don't necessarily know what information is valuable. And I think that when we go through this program, a lot of times when we're starting out in some of the more lecture-based classrooms, there's so much content, right?
Definitely.
And I think that people get overwhelmed with the content and they don't start thinking about, well, do I actually have the skills to be able to figure out what I need in order to treat a patient? And that's where I think the discrepancy comes when you get into clinic and you're the one in charge of applying the knowledge to your treatment plans.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to give people those tools and those resources because I think that you can always access content afterwards, but being able to actually have those skills to be able to figure out, well, what's the best evidence and how do I know that this is the best evidence? And actually formulating what questions am I trying to answer?
Yeah.
So those were the goals I had when I was teaching, to try to really inspire a sense of curiosity, but then also to help them develop those tools to find the information they needed.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily mean that you just regard information that doesn't have a high level of research, but it just means understanding the value of that knowledge and feeling comfortable using that.
Yeah.
So I think that it's definitely putting that lens on things. I also really wanted to help people discover their own style of practice.
Yeah.
So I think that a lot of times we're so inspired by really experienced NDs and we want to model their style, but I think we really need to figure out what makes sense for us.
Yeah.
And kind
Definitely.
of, growing in that setting and figuring out how we want our own practice to look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how did you approach helping people, helping like the students that you were supervising or the students that you were teaching? How did you help them to give more thought towards that, like developing their own?
Right.
Yeah.
And I think this is an aspect of the college that a lot of students get frustrated with. It's really challenging them. So when they ask a question, not just giving them the answer.
Yeah.
And I think when I first started out and you're less experienced, that's kind of your gut instinct, is to just give them the answer because you know the answer. But you really want to give them the tools to find it for themselves. So challenge them to really deconstruct, what are they asking and what resources do they have available to answer that question. And I think the more you put students on the spot, the more they know to do that and to look into it themselves, and then to come with less content-driven questions and more critical appraisal questions. Like, well, where can I find out how to figure out if this is a good test for diagnosis?
Yeah.
And the nice thing is, the more that that's become inherent in the courses we're teaching, the more you see people asking more critical questions. Yeah, so I think that was kind of the role I wanted to play.
Definitely empowering people to like be able to not be reliant, but able to kind of know how to go forward.
Utilize their own knowledge to get their answers. Yeah, empowering, I love that word.
So the next question is, how has being a student and teacher of naturopathic medicine affected your life? So this could be like as broad as you want to make it.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think naturopathic medicine is really a lifestyle. It's something you enter into, and at first you might not apply a lot of the principles to your own life, but the more you're engaging in the profession, the more you really start to incorporate it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that being in this profession just really has helped me to realize that health has so many different dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that we really do a disservice to ourselves when we just look at the quickest solution and the fastest fix.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that a lot of my own learning has really influenced just how I view health and then how I view life as well. Like looking at the whole picture, looking at the whole person and trying to figure out what do they need in order to feel fulfilled or in order to feel better.
How are you currently involved in the field of naturopathic medicine and health? So,
I'm completing my second year of residency here. So in terms of my responsibility at the school, it's definitely tapered down. So on Tuesdays, I'm a TA for acupuncture, and then on Wednesdays, I do the IV shift.
okay, yeah.
So those would be my responsibilities at the school. I also have a private practice in Pickering.
Mm-hmm.
So I work there on Thursdays and Saturdays.
Okay.
And I've really tried to also position myself as an educator in the community.
Yeah.
So we're involved in a lot of different talks and a lot of different trade shows and events just to really help educate the public about the naturopathic profession.
Yeah.
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 And I'm also completing research in inflammatory bowel disease.
Okay.
Yes. So that would probably be the hats that I'm wearing right now.
Okay. What have you learned?
So what have I learned? The biggest thing that I've learned is to be kind to ourselves. So at convocation, the valedictorian actually said it very eloquently that as individuals in this profession, we have a tendency to sort of build walls around ourselves because we're afraid of outside judgment. So we may not want to bring on a preceptor because we don't want someone else to see what we're doing and give us feedback. And it's similar, I think, in the program as you come in as a resident and you're teaching individuals, you're so afraid of making a mistake, you're so afraid of saying something wrong and to be caught, feeling like you didn't know enough or feeling like you're not competent enough. And I think in whatever capacity you are in, whether you're an instructor, whether you're a healthcare professional, whether you're a student, you'll always have that sense that you could know more or you should know more. And I think that this program, the great thing was it gives you a lot of sense of just an internal compass and allowing yourself to be patient and to learn and to make mistakes and to own those mistakes and realize that we're in a profession where we're constantly going to be presented with new information and new evidence, and we're always going to be learning, and that's just part of it. Mm-hmm. And having feedback from other individuals is immensely helpful, and it makes us better, and we're not perfect. And the more we can kind of settle into that and be comfortable with that, and let go of that idea of perfection and be open to this idea of growth, the better you are personally and professionally. So I would say that that's probably one of the biggest things I've learned from being able to gain those skills in self-reflection, to being able to receive feedback from the students and faculty. I think it's just learning how all of that fits into your own growth and development and to accept it with non-judgment and just with value. So with openness to grow.
So what are some challenges that you think some people may face upon doing the residency program?
Sure. So I think that probably one of the biggest challenges would be burnout.
Okay.
So you get into the residency, for most individuals, they'll apply right after their fourth year. They just wrote NPLEX and they're starting the residency. And I think it's a lot for a lot of people. I think people put a lot of themselves into their 4th year in the clinic, and even 4th year interns start to feel really drained by the end of it. And then they're thrown into MPlex, and I think that takes a lot out of people. And then the residency, it's a fantastic position, but it's very demanding. So speaking to other residents and going through it myself, I think just that idea of burnout. I think we come from a profession where we give so much to other people, and sometimes we don't remember to give back to ourselves and take that time to recharge. So I think if you don't have that balance, it can be really easy to feel burnt out. Another challenge is the position. As I mentioned, there's a lot of self-reflection that goes on, but there's also a lot of feedback. And that can be tough. A lot of times you kind of have to deal with your own ego, and you have to just remember what brought you there in the first place, and to have a little bit of a thicker skin. Some of the feedback can be borderline offensive. I think with the anonymity, some people will say a lot of things that can be disheartening, and it can be tough to read. But I think overall it makes you stronger, and I think it allows you to really reflect on where comments come from, not to take things personally. So in the long run, I think that it's a great experience, but it can definitely be really challenging.
And can you speak more to, you mentioned that sometimes you might get like feedback that, you know, it could range, especially with the anonymity factor. And so have you learned any ways to kind of bounce back from that, like to develop that thicker skin?
Right, and I think this is true for students as well. I think everyone, when you get feedback, you'll get all this positive feedback, but the one constructive comment is what kind of sticks with you. And I think it's a lot of what we learn in clinical psychology here, which is not just learning to give voice to all those automatic negative thoughts we have, but to start thinking critically about which of these thoughts have value. And some of the constructive feedback can be very helpful. Sometimes it's spot on. Sometimes it's areas that we need to grow in. Sometimes it gives voice to an area that you might not have realized is lacking. And those ones can actually be hard to hear, but in the long run really beneficial. But sometimes it's coming from somewhere else. It has very little merit to do with your own teaching or your own character, and more to do with frustrations the students experience just because this is a demanding program. And I think realizing that gives you the strength to not let it influence your own interpretation of who you are as an educator and who you are as a professional, but to become a little bit more aware of the other challenges other people face and the struggles they can be going through. And I think it makes you more compassionate.
And then the next question is, what words of wisdom do you have to share with? So we'll start with students studying absolutely anything.
Right. I would say my words of wisdom would be that don't be in a hurry. I think we get so nervous, and I see this in every student I've met, from people who are in high school, from people who are in elementary school, from people who are in this program, really nervous about the future. What am I going to do? Where am I going to practice? How am I going to make money? How am I going to support myself? And you sort of lose sight of what you actually need for yourself and what you value. And I would think that in the long run, when we lose sight of that, it just is a huge disservice to what we need as individuals to grow and to be happy and to feel successful. So I would tell everyone just to realize that, yes, those are all really, really important concerns and things to consider, but to also keep in mind what you need. So what do you need from a profession? What do you want in life? What do you value in life? And making sure that when we really focus on that, we're creating opportunities for ourselves that align with those values. So not just doing it because we think that's the right route and that's what people want from us and that's what we need to be successful, but doing it because it's true to who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that a lot of times when we start remembering what we want for ourselves, we end up putting ourselves in a path that works for our individual journey, and then we can succeed because it's aligned with our own sense of what our purpose is. And you can put a lot more energy into that, where when you feel like you're doing something for someone else, or because you just didn't have time to consider something that may have been a better fit, it can be exhausting and it can be draining.
Definitely.
For the naturopathic students at the college, I would say to remember to find a balance. So I think that we're very driven individuals and we're here for a lot of fantastic reasons, and the course is challenging and it can be easy to become disheartened and to become disenchanted, especially when we're not doing things for ourselves to recharge and to remind ourselves of why we're here. So if we can discover a balance, if we can find things that nourish us and take care of ourselves as well, I think not only will it help you get through the program and enjoy the program, but when you actually are out in practice, it'll also help for you to excel. So my advice for students considering the residency program is really consider if it's a good fit for you. Again, I think that, so it's natural to want to always seek greater knowledge, greater experience, to feel like there's something else out there for us, and to feel after we graduate that the next step is residency. And it attracts a lot of people to the program because of that, but sometimes I feel like it may attract people just because they're driven by the pursuit of knowledge and not necessarily because it's a great fit. The residency program is fantastic and extremely rewarding, but it's very demanding. And I think if you end up in it and if it's not right for you, it can be extremely draining, and I think you can feel burnout. So I would say for anyone who's considering it to just speak to as many residents or faculty members or past residents as possible, get a feel for what the residency is, what it entails, and if the more you speak to others, the more you start to think this really resonates with what I want, then go for it. And I would encourage people, if it's something that sounds like a good fit for you, go for it with all force. Like, don't discount yourself, don't doubt yourself, don't make excuses as to why it's not going to work out. 100% go for it, give it all that you got, because I know that there's been some residents that I've spoken to who say, I wasn't the head of the NSA, or I wasn't president of the school, I didn't think that they'd even look at my application, and they've become some of the best residents. Yeah. So if it's something that you think is a good fit for you, then go for it. Yeah.